I'm Autumn Hayes, 29 years old, and I just woke up disoriented in my childhood bedroom. I called out excitedly to my mom about helping Heather get ready for her wedding tomorrow. Mom froze, giving me a strange look. Honey, the wedding was last week. You were there as maid of honor. Panicking, I grabbed my phone, finding photos of myself at a wedding I have no memory of. The smiling woman in the mint green bridesmaid dress had my face, but those vacant eyes weren't mine. Someone else had lived my life that day. Before I dive into this nightmare, drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. Hit that like and subscribe button if you've ever felt like someone was gaslighting you. Trust me, what happened to me might make you double-check your own memories. The horror of that moment still sends chills down my spine. I stared at my mother's concerned face, searching for any sign she was joking. There wasn't any. Mom, that's impossible. The wedding is tomorrow. I have the invitation right here. I fumbled through my purse, pulling out the cream-colored card with gold lettering. The date clearly showed Saturday, June 12th. Today was June 11th, wasn't it? Mom gently took the invitation from my trembling hands. Autumn, today is June 19th. Look at your phone calendar. She was right. Somehow I'd lost an entire week of my life. Not just any week, my only sister's wedding week, but how I don't remember anything. Not the rehearsal dinner, not the ceremony, not being her maid of honor. Mom's face tightened almost imperceptibly. Well, you had a bit of an episode at the reception. The doctor said some memory loss might happen. It's probably for the best. Episode? What episode? Before I could press further, my phone buzzed with a text from Ryan, my boyfriend of 3 years. Hey babe, you up? Checking how you're feeling after everything. Everything. What everything? I texted back, immediately asking what he meant, but his response was vague. Let's talk in person. I'll come by later. While waiting for Ryan, I searched my room for clues. In the desk drawer, I found a journal in my handwriting detailing events I had no recollection of. Entries about final dress fittings, a bachelorette party in Chicago, arguments with Heather about centerpieces. The final entry from last Saturday simply read, "It's done. I played my part. They'll never know." What part? What wouldn't they know? I scrolled through my phone, finding hundreds of photos from the wedding week. In every picture I was smiling, but something looked off about my eyes, too wide, too vacant. When my mother called me down for lunch, I confronted her about my episode. Mom, what happened at the reception? Why can't I remember anything? She avoided my eyes, busying herself with sandwiches. You were upset. Started saying strange things during your toast. James's family was quite concerned. Dr. Phillips gave you something to calm down. Gave me something like medication. Without my consent. It was for your own good, Autumn. You weren't yourself. I made an emergency appointment with my regular doctor that afternoon. Dr. Lindbergh ran several tests checking for signs of concussion or other physical trauma. Physically, you're perfectly fine, she concluded. But these symptoms point to dissociative amnesia, often triggered by severe stress or trauma. Has anything particularly upsetting happened recently? I laughed bitterly. Apparently, I was maid of honor at my sister's wedding and had some kind of breakdown, but I don't remember any of it. Dr. Lindbergh recommended a neurologist and a psychiatrist, but I knew I needed to piece things together myself. I called Heather, but she didn't pick up. Texts went unanswered. Her new husband, James, responded with a brief, "She's resting after the honeymoon." Give her space. Space. I was missing an entire week of my life. That evening, our extended family gathered for a welcome home dinner for the newlyweds. Everyone acted strangely around me, too careful, too polite. When I asked specific questions about the wedding, conversations awkwardly shifted. What did I say in my toast? I asked my cousin Bree. She glanced nervously at my mother. It was lovely. Very emotional. I cornered my younger brother Lucas by the bathroom. Lucas, what really happened at the wedding? Why won't anyone tell me? He looked uncomfortable. You seemed drugged, Autumn. Slurring words, barely keeping your balance. Mom said you'd taken anxiety medication, but I've seen you on anxiety meds before, and that wasn't it. Before he could continue, Heather appeared, pulling him away for a family photo. As the evening wound down, I overheard my mother on the phone in the kitchen. She doesn't remember anything, Heather. Maybe it's better that way. The sense of betrayal was suffocating. My own family was hiding something massive from me. Whatever happened at that wedding, they were all in on it. Later, I discovered wedding gift receipts in my purse with my signature, except the handwriting wasn't quite mine. Someone had been signing my name. Who had I been during that lost week, and why was everyone determined to keep the truth from me? That night I couldn't sleep. The conversation I'd overheard kept repeating in my mind. She doesn't remember anything. Maybe it's better that way. What was better for me not to remember? What had they done? At 3 a.m., I crept downstairs to confront my mother. I found her still awake, nursing a glass of wine at the kitchen table. Mom, I know you're keeping something from me. I heard you talking to Heather. What happened at the wedding that you don't want me to remember? Her face crumpled. For a moment, I thought she might finally tell me the truth. Instead, she took a deep breath and straightened her shoulders. Autumn, you've always been. High-strung. Emotional. Heather's wedding was important. The most important day of her life. And I prompted feeling a creeping dread. And we couldn't risk you having one of your episodes. Not that day. The revelation hit me like a physical blow. You drugged me. We helped you stay calm, she corrected, not denying it. Dr. Phillips prescribed a mild sedative. Just enough to keep you manageable. Manageable. My voice rose. I was the maid of honor. That's my sister. Exactly. Mom's voice hardened. It was Heather's day. Not yours. She was worried you'd make a scene like you always do when the attention isn't on you. I was speechless. My entire life I'd been the responsible one, the steady one. Heather was the dramatic one who needed constant validation. Heather convinced everyone I would ruin her wedding. And you believed her? She showed us your texts, Autumn. The threats you made about her perfect day. What texts? I never sent any threats. But Mom wouldn't budge. According to her, I'd been increasingly unstable in the months leading to the wedding. Jealous. Resentful. The decision to lightly sedate me had been a family consensus. Sickened, I searched my mother's bathroom and found what I was looking for: a prescription bottle with my name on it. Lorazepam, a powerful sedative. The date showed it had been filled 3 weeks before the wedding. They had been planning this. The next day I met with Madison, a family friend who had always been more my ally than Heather's. Over coffee, her face grew grim as I explained my situation. I knew something was off, she admitted. You were like a robot at the wedding, following a script. A script? Madison nodded. Heather had this list of what you were supposed to say and do. I saw her reviewing it with you before the ceremony, and you just nodded along, completely zoned out. She showed me a video on her phone, me in my mint green dress, mechanically reciting a toast that sounded nothing like my natural speaking style. My words praised Heather as the sister I always looked up to, and the family's true shining star. That's not me, I whispered. I would never say those things. Madison squeezed my hand. Heather's been working on your parents for months, Autumn. Telling them you were unstable, jealous, potentially violent. Every time you missed a family dinner or were late to a wedding planning session, she spun it as evidence of your deteriorating mental state. The memories came flooding back, not of the wedding, but of the months before. How Heather had insisted on scheduling wedding events when I had work commitments, then told everyone I was prioritizing my job over her happiness. How she'd accidentally excluded me from email chains, then claimed I was ignoring wedding responsibilities. When I confronted my extended family with what I'd learned, the truth emerged in pieces. My father admitted they'd agreed to light sedation, but insisted it was for my own good. My aunt revealed that Heather had shown everyone fabricated texts and emails supposedly from me, threatening to ruin the wedding. We thought we were protecting Heather, my father said weakly, and helping you not make a scene you'd regret. By drugging me without my knowledge or consent, I was shaking with rage. That's a crime. Several crimes, actually. We did what was best for the family, my mother insisted, though her certainty seemed to be wavering. The ultimate betrayal came when I learned they'd been adding the medication to my food for 3 days before the wedding, not just the day of. That explained why my memories started getting fuzzy earlier that week. They'd been experimenting with dosages, trying to find the right balance of compliant but functional. My own family had conspired to drug me, manipulate me, and erase my agency during one of the most important events of our lives. And my sister had orchestrated all of it. I thought I'd hit rock bottom discovering my family's betrayal, but I was wrong. The worst was still coming. Ryan finally came over the next day. My boyfriend of 3 years, the man I thought I'd marry someday. The one person who was supposed to be on my side no matter what. "How are you feeling?" he asked, kissing my cheek casually as if nothing was wrong. How am I feeling? I just discovered my entire family drugged me for my sister's wedding. How do you think I'm feeling? His face fell. Ah, you remember that now. The way he said it made my blood run cold. You knew. Ryan sat heavily on the edge of my bed. Autumn, you have to understand. Everyone was worried about you. You weren't yourself in the months before the wedding. What are you talking about? I was working overtime to afford the ridiculous bridesmaid dress Heather picked, plus her destination bachelorette party. You were irritable, distracted. Heather was concerned. I cut him off. Since when do you and Heather have heart-to-hearts about my mental health? Ryan's silence told me everything. With shaking hands, I grabbed his phone from the nightstand. What are you doing? He protested, reaching for it. If you have nothing to hide, you won't mind. I knew his passcode, his mother's birthday, and he knew mine. We'd always had an open phone policy, or so I thought. What I found destroyed me. Months of text exchanges between Ryan and Heather, discussing me as if I were a problem to solve an obstacle to overcome. Ryan, she's working late again. Says she can't make the menu tasting. Heather, see, I told you. She's deliberately sabotaging things. Ryan, I don't know. Her boss is really demanding lately. Heather, classic Autumn, always making excuses. Did she take her medication today, Ryan? I put it in her coffee this morning. She seemed calmer. I looked up from the phone, my vision blurring with tears. You've been drugging me for how long? Ryan at least had the decency to look ashamed. Just occasionally. When there were big family events coming up, the medication helped you stay calm. I was calm, I screamed, throwing his phone against the wall. I was working 60-hour weeks to afford being in this ridiculous wedding while trying to meet all of Heather's insane demands. Autumn, please. We were trying to help you. Help me, I laughed bitterly. By secretly medicating me, do you have any idea how violated I feel, how betrayed? His justifications grew increasingly weak as I pressed him. Finally, the truth emerged. James's father had offered Ryan a job at his investment firm, but only if the wedding went smoothly. So this was about your career, I was stunned. You drugged your girlfriend for a job opportunity. It wasn't just that Ryan protested. James's father mentioned concerns about your stability. Said they needed to know I could manage my household before bringing me into the business. Manage your household. I'm not a pet or a child to be managed. I'm your partner, or I was. The 3 years we'd built together collapsed in that moment. Ryan had been reporting on my behavior to Heather and her new in-laws for months. He'd slipped prescription medication into my food and drinks without my knowledge or consent. He'd helped them control me like a puppet during the most important event of my sister's life. Get out, I whispered. Autumn, be reasonable. Get out! I screamed, throwing the nearest object, a framed photo of us from happier times. It shattered against the wall. Ryan left, but the betrayal wasn't quite complete. 2 days later, while I was at work, he returned with a moving truck and took half of everything from our apartment. My support system was gone. My boyfriend, my family, everyone I trusted had conspired against me. I was entirely alone with nothing but growing rage, and a determination to uncover exactly what had happened during that missing week. After Ryan's betrayal, I knew I couldn't trust anyone's version of events. I needed hard evidence of what happened during my lost week. If I was going to confront my family and potentially take legal action, I needed proof. First, I tackled my phone. I'd always backed up my photos to a cloud account Ryan didn't know about. Searching through recently deleted photos, I discovered dozens of images from the wedding that someone had tried to erase. Photos of me looking vacant-eyed and robotic. A video of Heather whispering instructions in my ear before the ceremony, me nodding blankly. In one particularly disturbing image, I could see my mother and Dr. Phillips watching me from across the reception hall, both looking concerned as I swayed slightly at the head table. I reached out to wedding guests who weren't close to Heather, casual friends, distant relatives, James's college roommates. Their accounts painted a troubling picture. "You seemed off," my cousin's husband told me over the phone. "Everyone assumed you were drunk, but you weren't drinking. Just water all night." "Did Heather seem concerned about me?" I asked. "Concerned, no. She kept telling everyone you were fine, just emotional about your little sister getting married first." A pattern emerged from these conversations. Heather had been in full bridezilla mode for months, alienating bridesmaids and vendors alike. 3 bridesmaids had quit before the wedding. The wedding planner had threatened to walk out twice. Yet somehow I, drugged and barely conscious, had been the difficult one. My investigation took an unexpected turn when I received an email from Dr. Sarah Winters, our family therapist from years ago. "Autumn, I've heard concerning things about your family recently," she wrote. "If you're ready to discuss the patterns we identified during our sessions when you were younger, please reach out." I'd forgotten those therapy sessions pushed them out of memory. My parents had taken Heather and me to family therapy after our grandmother died. I was 16, Heather 14. The sessions had ended abruptly when Dr. Winters suggested my parents might be enabling Heather's manipulative behaviors. When we met for coffee, Dr. Winters was direct. "Your sister displayed classic signs of narcissistic tendencies, even then, Autumn. Your parents reinforced it by always giving in to her demands and expecting you to do the same for family harmony. But drugging me for her wedding, that's beyond dysfunctional. It's criminal," Dr. Winters agreed, and unfortunately consistent with the dynamic I observed. "Your role was always to accommodate Heather's needs, to make yourself smaller so she could be bigger." As I dug deeper, I discovered financial manipulation as well. Credit card statements showed thousands of dollars in wedding expenses charged to my accounts without my knowledge. Somehow, during my drugged state, I'd been convinced to pay for the honeymoon suite, additional floral arrangements, and an upgraded cocktail hour. My high school friend Taylor, who'd attended the wedding as my +1 after Ryan claimed he had to work late, another lie, I now realized provided the most damning evidence. "I thought you were having a stroke," or something, she admitted. "You kept zoning out mid-conversation. At one point, you were trying to tell me something important, but Heather appeared and led you away. When you came back, you couldn't remember what you wanted to say." Most shocking was Taylor's revelation that I'd given her my phone for safekeeping the night before the wedding. "You were acting paranoid, saying someone was going through your things. You made me promise to keep your phone until after the ceremony." This didn't sound like paranoia. It sounded like a moment of clarity in the midst of being drugged. And it explained why I found voice recordings on my phone that I didn't remember making. "I know they're planning something," my own voice whispered in one recording. "If you're listening to this, Autumn, don't trust what they tell you. Heather's been tampering with my medication. Mom's involved. Ryan, too. It's about Grandma Eleanor's trust fund." I overheard them. The recording cut off abruptly, but it was enough to confirm my suspicions. Part of me had been aware enough to leave breadcrumbs for my future self. The medication had caused blackouts, but hadn't completely controlled me. Some small fighting part of my consciousness had been documenting the abuse. Armed with photos, videos, financial records, witness statements, and my own recordings, I was ready for the next phase confrontation. I waited until Wednesday, midway through Heather's workday, at the boutique marketing firm where she was an account executive. No warning, no appointment. Just me walking through the glass doors with a manila envelope full of evidence. Her face, when she saw me, the flicker of panic before the artificial smile took over, told me everything. "Autumn, what a surprise. I've been meaning to call you." "Save it," I cut her off. Is there somewhere private we can talk? She led me to a small conference room, her heels clicking nervously on the polished concrete floor. As soon as the door closed, her demeanor changed. What are you doing here? I'm working. I know what you did. I spread the photos across the table, images of me at the wedding, looking drugged screenshots of texts between her and Ryan, copies of unauthorized credit card charges. I know all of it, Heather. She didn't even try to deny it. Instead, her face hardened. You were going to ruin everything. Like you always do. Ruin what? Your perfect day. By working overtime to afford being your maid of honor. By helping Mom address 200 invitations. By existing, she spat. It's always been the Autumn show. Autumn the responsible one. Autumn the successful one. The smart one. For once, just once, I needed the spotlight. So you drugged me, had Ryan slip medication in my drinks for weeks, convinced our entire family I was mentally unstable. You made it so easy, she sneered. Always working late, missing family dinners, always too busy for wedding planning. I just filled in the blanks for everyone. But why, Heather, why go to such extremes? We're sisters. She laughed. A cold sound I'd never heard from her before. Sisters, is that what you think we are? Competitors is more accurate. And this time I needed to win. Win what? Grandma Eleanor's trust fund, you idiot. Don't tell me you forgot about the clause. The trust fund. Our grandmother had left each of us a substantial inheritance, but with conditions. The money would be released when we turned 30 or got married, whichever came first. Heather's 30th birthday was approaching in 2 months. You needed to get married before your birthday, I whispered the pieces, finally clicking. But what does that have to do with drugging me? You're a co-trustee, Autumn. Your signature is required to release the funds. And you've always been so judgmental about how I handle money. I was stunned. So this elaborate scheme, the drugging, the manipulation, was to get me to sign over your portion of the inheritance. And it worked. Heather pulled a document from her desk drawer. See your signature, witnessed by Mom and Dad. The money transfers next week. The signature looked like mine, but slightly off, written by a drugged hand, or possibly forged entirely. This is fraud, Heather. It's illegal on multiple levels. Prove it, she challenged. Who's going to believe you, the unstable sister who had a breakdown at the wedding? The one with the history of jealousy and attention-seeking. I have evidence. Recordings, witness statements. I have an entire family who will testify to your mental health issues, she countered. I have a doctor who prescribed you sedatives. I have a boyfriend, ex-boyfriend, who will confirm your erratic behavior. You've thought of everything, haven't you? I always do. That's the difference between us, Autumn. You think being good is enough. I know you have to be strategic. I stood to leave, gathering my evidence. At the door, I turned back. One more thing, Heather. The recording I made the night before the wedding, I sent copies to Grandma Eleanor and the trustee at her bank. They're waiting for my call. The color drained from her face. You're bluffing. Like you said, I was drugged, not unconscious. Parts of me were still fighting, still documenting. You got sloppy, Heather. She lunged across the room, grabbing for the envelope in my hands. We struggled, knocking over a chair and sending papers flying. Her manicured nails scratched my cheek as she clawed for the evidence. The commotion brought her colleague Meredith running into the room. She froze in the doorway, taking in the scene, Heather perfectly groomed, Heather red-faced and snarling as she tried to destroy documents. She's having an episode, Heather told Meredith breathlessly. Call security. I don't think so, Meredith said slowly, her eyes on the scattered photos of me in my drugged state. What's going on here, Heather? In that moment, watching Heather's carefully crafted facade begin to crumble, I felt a strange mixture of satisfaction and sorrow. My sister, who I'd protected and supported our entire lives, had been willing to destroy me for money. You'll regret this, Heather hissed, as I gathered the evidence and walked out. I'll make sure you're committed. No one will believe you over me, But looking back at her disheveled and exposed in front of her colleague, I knew the truth. Her power over me was already broken. The confrontation with Heather was just the beginning. When I returned home that evening, I found my mother waiting in my apartment. "We need to talk, Autumn." I stood in the doorway, unwilling to invite her in. "Now you want to talk after drugging me and gaslighting me for months. Please." Her voice cracked. "I've been doing a lot of thinking since you found the medication. Things aren't adding up." I reluctantly let her in. She sat stiffly on my couch, looking around at the half-empty apartment, the spaces where Ryan's things had been. "Heather showed me texts from you," she began hesitantly. "Threatening texts about ruining the wedding. But today I asked to see her phone and she refused. That's not like her. Because the texts don't exist, Mom. She lied. She manipulated all of you. But why would she do that?" I explained about Grandma Eleanor's trust fund, about Heather needing my signature to access her inheritance, about the wedding timeline rushing to beat her 30th birthday. Mom listened, her face growing paler with each revelation. "Your father had doubts about the medication plan," she admitted finally. "He said it didn't seem right that we should just talk to you directly about our concerns. But Heather was so convincing, and you've always been harder to reach emotionally. So you drugged me instead of having a conversation. We thought it was a mild anti-anxiety medication." She was crying now. "Dr. Phillips assured us it was perfectly safe, just enough to take the edge off your anxiety." "I didn't have anxiety, Mom. I was working 70-hour weeks to afford being in this wedding." The next revelation came from my father, who called late that night. "I've moved out," he said without preamble. "After what your mother told me about your conversation, I confronted Heather. She admitted to exaggerating concerns about your mental state." "Exaggerating, Dad, she fabricated them entirely." "I know that now." His voice was heavy with regret. "I should have trusted my instincts. When Dr. Phillips described the dosage, it seemed excessive, but your mother was so certain. Where are you staying? With Uncle Robert?" "I can't be in that house right now, not with your mother still defending some of what happened." The family was splitting into factions. My brother Lucas became my strongest ally, sharing his own recordings of family discussions he'd secretly documented. "I knew something was off," he told me over beers at my apartment. "The way they were talking about you when you weren't around, it didn't match the sister I know." Lucas's recordings included a damning conversation between Heather and our parents 3 days before the wedding. "Heather, if she starts asking questions during the ceremony, just tell her she's forgotten due to stress. She'll believe it coming from both of you." "Mom, I don't know, honey. Maybe we should reduce the dosage." "Heather, do you want her making a scene embarrassing us in front of James's family? His father is a respected cardiologist, Dad, but if she's completely out of it, won't that be more noticeable, Heather? I've got it handled. Ryan knows what to do." Surprisingly, James Heather's new husband reached out next. We met at a coffee shop downtown, away from family haunts. "I didn't know the full extent of it," he said, looking haggard. "I knew they were giving you something to calm your nerves. But the way you looked at the reception, it scared me." "Why are you telling me this now?" "Because Heather's lying to me too." He pushed a folder across the table. "These are credit card statements showing thousands spent on the wedding that weren't in our budget. She told me your parents covered it, but I've just discovered it was charged to your accounts." The betrayal spread like cracks through ice. Family friend Dr. Phillips, confronted with the evidence of his inappropriate prescribing, admitted Heather had misrepresented my symptoms and history. "She provided detailed accounts of your supposedly erratic behavior," he explained, nervously aware I was recording our conversation. "Said you'd been previously diagnosed with severe anxiety. I should have verified with your actual doctor." Extended family members began reaching out. Aunt Caroline called to say she'd found Heather's detailed plans for the wedding in a notebook left at her house, including a section titled "Controlling Autumn with Daily Medication Schedules." "I thought it was a joke," she said, horrified. "Some kind of silly bridezilla thing. I never imagined she was actually drugging you." The most significant fracture came when my mother found the journal where Heather had outlined her entire plan. She called me sobbing. "There's a page about forging your signature on the trust documents. about manipulating Ryan with promises of connections to James's family business, about dosage experiments to see how much medication would make you compliant but still functional. Autumn, what have we done? My parents' 35-year marriage began to crumble under the weight of these revelations. My father, already staying with my uncle, filed for legal separation. Extended family gatherings became tense affairs with people choosing sides. Through it all, Heather tried desperately to maintain control, calling family meetings and creating new narratives to explain away the evidence. But her once solid support system was disintegrating. She called me yesterday, Lucas reported, during one of our now regular dinners. Tried to convince me you've been mentally ill for years and are making all this up for attention. When I told her I had recordings, she threatened to cut me out of her life forever. And what did you say? I asked. He grinned. I told her that sounded like a pretty good deal, actually. The sister who had been the center of our family universe for decades was experiencing something entirely new consequences. 3 weeks after discovering what had been done to me, I sat across from attorney Rebecca Winters, no relation to Dr. Sarah Winters, though the coincidence amused us both. Let me make sure I understand, she said, reviewing my documentation. Your family, led by your sister, conspired to administer prescription medication to you without your knowledge or consent. They used this impaired state to have you sign legal documents releasing trust fund money, and they charged thousands of dollars to your credit cards without authorization. That's correct. She removed her glasses. Autumn, we're looking at multiple criminal offenses here: assault, illegal administration of controlled substances, fraud, identity theft, financial exploitation, not to mention the ethical violations by Dr. Phillips. What are my options? You could pursue criminal charges, civil litigation for damages, or both. But I have to warn you, family cases like this get messy. Are you prepared for what this will do to your relationships? I thought about my vacant eyes in the wedding photos, about Ryan slipping medication into my morning coffee, about Heather's cold voice. You made it so easy. Those relationships are already destroyed, I said firmly. What I want now is justice and protection. The legal process began with a medical ethics complaint against Dr. Phillips for inappropriate prescribing. The state medical board launched an immediate investigation, and he voluntarily suspended his practice pending the outcome. Next came a meeting with Detective Samantha Torres from the Financial Crimes Unit. The credit card fraud is the easiest to prove, she explained, examining the statements showing charges for wedding expenses I never authorized. The drugging will be harder to document since it happened weeks ago, but if we can get testimony from witnesses. I provided contact information for everyone who had come forward: family members, wedding guests, even Ryan, who had begun to realize the legal jeopardy he was in and was now offering to cooperate in exchange for leniency. He admits to putting medication in your food and drinks, Detective Torres asked incredulously. Multiple times over several weeks, I confirmed. He kept a log of dosages and effects at Heather's request. The detective shook her head. In 15 years of law enforcement, I've seen some disturbing family dynamics, but this is exceptional. The investigation uncovered the full extent of the financial fraud. Beyond the unauthorized credit card charges, Heather had opened new accounts in my name, forged checks from my business account, and attempted to transfer funds from my savings to cover wedding costs when vendors threatened to quit over her. Demands. Grandmother Eleanor, now 84, but sharp as ever, was the next to take action. After reviewing my evidence, she immediately contacted her estate attorney. I've adjusted the trust, she informed me during our weekly tea. The conditions have been changed. No one can access funds without a psychiatric evaluation and financial responsibility assessment. Heather will be furious, I warned. Let her be furious with me, Grandma said firmly. I've enabled too much of her behavior over the years. We all have. The professional consequences for Heather came swiftly. Her marketing firm placed her on administrative leave pending an internal investigation after Meredith reported the altercation in the conference room. They've interviewed 6 colleagues who witnessed her erratic behavior since returning from her honeymoon, my friend at the firm reported. Plus, she's been bad-mouthing you to clients claiming you're mentally unstable. That's a violation of company policy about discussing personal matters in professional settings. Ryan faced his own professional fallout. His new position at James's family firm was rescinded when James's father learned of his role in the drugging scheme. Dr. Michaels said he can't have someone with such questionable ethics working with patient financial information, James told me during one of our increasingly frequent conversations. Ryan's been calling me constantly, blaming everyone but himself. Legal papers were served to my family members 2 months after the wedding. My mother, father, Heather, and Ryan all received notifications of pending civil action for the drugging scheme. Dr. Phillips was served with both civil papers and notice of the medical board investigation. Their reactions varied wildly. Ryan immediately called offering to settle, terrified about potential criminal charges. My father accepted the papers without comment, later sending a message through his attorney that he wouldn't contest any claims. My mother broke down, calling repeatedly to beg for reconciliation without legal intervention. Heather's response was the most extreme. She organized a family intervention claiming I was having a mental breakdown and inventing conspiracy theories. "This is exactly what I was afraid would happen," she told assembled family members. "Autumn needs professional help, not lawsuits." But the family alliance had fractured beyond repair. Only our mother attended Heather's intervention attempt, and even she left early after Heather's claims became increasingly outlandish. As the legal proceedings advanced, settlement offers began arriving. Ryan proposed covering all my legal fees plus damages. My parents offered to pay for ongoing therapy and reimburse all wedding expenses. Dr. Phillips, through his attorney, offered a substantial settlement in exchange for dropping the medical board complaint, which I refused. Only Heather continued to fight, refusing to acknowledge any wrongdoing and threatening countersuits for defamation. "She doesn't understand that the evidence is overwhelming," Attorney Winters told me after a particularly contentious negotiation. "Every day she refuses to settle, she's increasing her potential financial and criminal liability." Grandmother Eleanor made a final attempt at family reconciliation, inviting everyone to her home to discuss the situation. Her message was clear: accept responsibility, make amends, or face being cut off emotionally and financially. "I won't have this poison in my family any longer," she declared, looking every inch the family matriarch despite her diminutive frame. "Too many years of enabling destructive behavior. It ends now." The stage was set for the final confrontation. Grandmother Eleanor's stately Victorian home had always been our family's neutral ground. Sunday, dinners, holiday gatherings, milestone celebrations all took place under her watchful eye. Now, 6 months after the wedding, we gathered there for a very different purpose. I arrived first at Grandma's request. She squeezed my hand as we waited in the formal living room. "Are you ready for this, Autumn?" "As ready as I'll ever be." My parents arrived next separately. They hadn't spoken in weeks. My father looked thinner, older, his shoulders hunched with the weight of guilt. My mother's eyes were puffy from crying, but there was a new resolve in her expression. Lucas came with James, an unlikely alliance that had formed through the legal proceedings. Heather arrived last, making an entrance in designer sunglasses despite the overcast day. She'd lost weight, her cheekbones sharp beneath her flawless makeup. "Let's get this over with," she said, refusing Grandma's offer of refreshments. Grandmother Eleanor took control immediately. "We're here to resolve this situation as a family before the courts do it for us." My mother spoke first. "Autumn, I can't undo what happened, but I want you to know how deeply sorry I am. I believed Heather because it was easier than questioning her. I failed you as a mother." "You didn't just fail her," my father interjected. "You orchestrated the whole medication plan. You were the one who approached Dr. Phillips." "Because you were too weak to make any decisions," my mother shot back. "Always deferring, always avoiding conflict." "Stop it, both of you," Grandma commanded. "This isn't about your marital problems." Heather seized the opening. "It's about Autumn's vindictive campaign to destroy our family over a few anxiety pills." She was clearly unstable before the wedding. We helped her through it. Now she's fabricating this elaborate revenge fantasy. That's enough, Heather James interrupted. I've seen the evidence. We all have. You too, Heather's voice rose. My own husband. After everything I did to make our wedding perfect, I couldn't stay silent any longer. You drugged your maid of honor, committed fraud, and manipulated everyone around you. For what money you would have received in 2 months anyway. It wasn't just about the money Heather spat. It was about control. You've always thought you were better than me with your perfect career and your perfect relationship. Always the responsible one, the mature one, the favorite. The favorite, I was genuinely confused. Heather, our entire family has revolved around you since you were born. Your needs, your wants, your feelings always came first. Lies, everyone always praised Autumn, so smart, so dependable, so successful. Poor Heather trying to keep up. The raw jealousy in her voice stunned the room into silence. Finally, my mother spoke. Heather, that's not true. We've always given you everything you wanted. Sometimes at Autumn's expense. Another betrayal, Heather hissed. Fine. I have my own evidence. She produced a USB drive. Recordings of Autumn threatening to ruin my wedding. Proof of her mental instability. Show us, I challenged, knowing no such recordings existed. When she connected it to Grandma's laptop, the files were indeed audio recordings, but not what she claimed. Instead, they were conversations between Heather and Ryan, planning the medication schedule, discussing dosages, laughing about how compliant I'd become. She'd brought the wrong drive. The color drained from Heather's face as her own voice filled the room. Up the dosage on Thursday. I need her completely pliable for the rehearsal dinner. James's mother is concerned about her giving a speech. Ryan's voice. Isn't this getting dangerous? She could have a bad reaction. Then we'll say she had a breakdown. Actually, that might work better for the narrative. Just make sure she signs those trust documents before the ceremony. I had suspected, even known much of this, but hearing it stated so coldly, so calculatingly, was still shocking. My father buried his face in his hands. My mother began to sob. Turn it off, James said quietly. I've heard enough. Heather lunged for the laptop, but Lucas blocked her path. It's over, Heather. We all know the truth now. You planned to destroy your own sister. Grandmother Eleanor's voice was heavy with disappointment. For money? For attention? There's no coming back from this. Fine, Heather shouted her carefully, constructed facade, finally shattering completely. Yes, I did it. I orchestrated all of it. Autumn always gets everything handed to her while I have to fight for every scrap of attention. One day, my wedding day, I deserved to be the center of the universe, without her perfect shadow looming over me. The confession hung in the air, witnessed by everyone. In that moment, my sister became a stranger to me, someone I might have pitied if she hadn't caused so much damage. My father stood addressing me directly for the first time. I've instructed my attorney to accept whatever terms you propose, Autumn. No contest. What was done to you was unforgivable, and I was part of it. Same, my mother whispered. Whatever you need to heal. I filed for divorce, James announced, not looking at Heather. The papers should arrive tomorrow. Heather's rage turned to panic as she realized her support system had completely collapsed. Mom, Dad, you can't be serious. It was just some anxiety medication. Everyone's acting like I committed some horrible crime. You did commit horrible crimes, Lucas pointed out. Several of them. That's not in dispute anymore. I had prepared extensively for this confrontation, imagined it countless times. In my fantasies, I delivered the perfect, cutting remark, watched Heather crumble, felt the satisfaction of complete vindication. The reality was different. Looking at my sister desperate, cornered, still unable to comprehend the magnitude of what she'd done, I felt only exhaustion and a profound sadness. Here's my ultimatum, I said quietly. Full legal accountability. Complete financial restitution. Intensive therapy. If those conditions are met, I won't press criminal charges. And if I refuse, Heather challenged, though her voice wavered. Grandmother Eleanor answered for me. Then you face the full legal consequences of your actions without family support, financial or otherwise. As Heather looked around the room, searching for any remaining ally and finding none, something in her seemed to break. For just a moment, I glimpsed the scared little sister I'd protected throughout our childhood, the girl who'd crawl into my bed during thunderstorms, who'd clutch my hand on the first day of school. But that sister was gone, consumed by jealousy and entitlement. The woman before me was someone else, entirely. Someone who had orchestrated my drugging manipulation and financial exploitation without remorse. This family deserves each other, Heather finally said, gathering her purse. At the door, she turned back. Don't think this is over, Autumn. You've won this round, but you won't always have everyone fooled. After she left, the silence was deafening. One by one, family members departed, my father to his temporary apartment, my mother to the family home. She now occupied alone Lucas and James to their respective lives. Only Grandma Eleanor and I remained sitting in the fading afternoon light of the family home that would never host the same family again. What happens now? She asked gently. Now I rebuild, I answered. Just not here. 6 months after the final confrontation at Grandma Eleanor's house, I stood in my new apartment in Denver, unpacking the last of my boxes. The mountains visible from my window couldn't be more different from the flat Midwestern landscape I'd grown up with. That was exactly the point. My phone chimed with a text from my new friend Zoe. Run this afternoon, trail or pavement. 6 months earlier, I wouldn't have had the energy for either option. The aftermath of trauma had hit me hard once the adrenaline of investigation and confrontation wore off. Nightmares, anxiety, paralyzing trust issues, all the things my family had falsely accused me of experiencing before the wedding, became my daily reality after it. The difference was that now I had proper support. Dr. Natalie Chen, my trauma therapist, had been guiding me through the healing process with steady compassion. Betrayal trauma is particularly devastating when it comes from family, she'd explained in our first session. The people who were supposed to protect you became the source of harm. That violates your fundamental sense of safety in the world. Twice weekly therapy sessions had given me tools to process what happened. EMDR therapy helped with the flashbacks, moments when I'd suddenly be back in that mint green dress, feeling the fog of unwanted medication clouding my thoughts. Cognitive processing therapy helped me challenge the destructive beliefs that had formed, that I was unworthy of protection, that I couldn't trust my own perceptions, that something about me invited betrayal. I'd found unexpected allies in my healing journey. James, now officially divorced from Heather, had become a friend. We met for coffee monthly, both processing our respective traumas from loving someone who'd prioritized control over connection. She called me yesterday, he told me during our last meeting. Still trying to convince me you manipulated everyone with fake evidence. Does she still not understand that her own recordings confirmed everything? He shook his head. I don't think she's capable of acknowledging what she did. Her narrative is too important to her identity. My brother Lucas had moved to Boulder, just 30 minutes away, taking a job with a tech startup. Having him nearby provided continuity without the weight of our family's dysfunction. The legal outcomes had been swift and decisive. Dr. Phillips surrendered his medical license rather than face a formal hearing. Ryan accepted a plea deal for his role in administering medication without consent, resulting in probation and community service. My parents settled the civil case covering my legal fees, therapy costs, and substantial damages. Only Heather had continued fighting, hiring increasingly desperate attorneys as her options narrowed. When the trust fund evidence became public record through court filings, Grandmother Eleanor had made her decision. Heather's inheritance was placed in a restricted trust, accessible only for education, healthcare, and basic living. Expenses with all distributions managed by a neutral third-party trustee. My mother had begun her own therapy journey, finally confronting her role in enabling Heather's manipulative behavior. Our relationship remained tentative, weekly phone calls, carefully neutral topics, the occasional exchange of recipes or book recommendations. The deep wound of her betrayal would take years to heal if it ever did completely. I missed all the signs she'd admitted during a rare moment of genuine connection. I was so focused on keeping the peace, on not upsetting Heather, that I lost sight of protecting you. I don't expect forgiveness, Autumn. I just want you to know I understand what I did now. My father and I had less contact. His guilt had manifested as avoidance, occasional emails, his primary means of communication. The divorce proceedings between my parents were ongoing, another casualty of the wedding scheme's aftermath. The most profound healing came through establishing new connections. My trauma support group introduced me to others who understood betrayal without explanation. The hiking club I'd joined provided physical challenge and natural beauty when thoughts became too heavy. Colleagues at my new job knew me only as I was now, not as an extension of family dysfunction. Recovering my missing memories had been a gradual process, fragments returning through therapy and triggers. I remembered moments of clarity during the drugged week, hiding my phone with Taylor, recording Heather's instructions, attempting to reduce the medication doses when no one was watching. My body and mind had fought the chemical control even when my conscious awareness was suppressed. Oddly, one of the most healing conversations came from James's ex-best man, who reached out months after the divorce. "Heather's still working her manipulation," he reported. "Telling everyone James was abusive, that you brainwashed him. But no one's buying it anymore. Her stories keep changing, and people have seen the court documents." "Is she getting help?" I asked, surprising myself with the question. "Not that anyone can tell. Last I heard, she's dating some wealthy guy from her gym, spinning tales about her crazy family who turned against her out of jealousy." Some patterns never changed, but I had. Grandmother Eleanor, now my most regular family contact, summarized it best during our weekly video call. "You've always been the family's backbone, Autumn. The difference is now you're your own backbone first." "I'm learning to be," I agreed. As I finished unpacking my new apartment, I placed a framed photo on my desk, not of my biological family, but of my chosen one, Lucas Zoe, my trauma group, Grandma Eleanor, my Denver hiking club, people who supported my healing without agenda or condition. The journey wasn't over. Trust would always be more difficult for me. Relationships would require extra care and communication. The legal aftermath would continue for months. But standing in my sun-filled apartment, surrounded by new beginnings, I felt something I hadn't expected to feel again so soon: hope. So what about you? Have you ever had to rebuild after a betrayal? Has anyone in your life ever tried to manipulate your reality? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below. Your experiences might help someone else recognize they're not alone. If you found value in my story, please hit that like button, subscribe for more real-life journeys, and share with someone who might need to hear this message. Trust your instincts even when everyone tells you you're wrong. Sometimes you're the only one seeing the truth. Thank you for witnessing my story. May your own journey bring healing, whether you're starting over or helping someone else find their way back to themselves.